In this lesson, we will describe the war contributions of European allies. We will trace the revolution in the southern colonies, summarize the British surrender at Yorktown, and recognize the symbolic value of the American Revolution. European allies shift the balance. February 1778, American troops were wintering at Valley Forge. A man named Frederick von Steuben, who was a Prussian drill master, was teaching the troops to stand at attention, do field maneuvers, fire and reload quickly, and how to use bayonets. A French aristocrat named the Marquis de Lafayette joins George Washington at Valley Forge and begins to lobby for French reinforcements in 1779. The British will move south. After their defeat at Saratoga, the British move into the southern colonies to try to rally Loyalist support. In 1779, the British take control of Savannah, Georgia. The British General Cornwallis captures Charlestown, South Carolina, and takes 5,500 American soldiers as prisoners of war. Moving north, Cornwallis continues to advance to conquer North Carolina, but is forced back into South Carolina by the Patriots and the Continental Army. The British troops will lose the Battle of Cowpens, South Carolina, when they become surrounded by General Greene in January of 1781. The British will then retaliate 2 months later, but lose 1/4 of their troops in the process, which will hurt the British Army. British forces begin to weaken. The British General Cornwallis is going to move into Virginia and set up a camp at Yorktown. Yorktown is on a peninsula between the James and York rivers, which is shown here on the map. This is a critical mistake. General Cornwallis had thought that if he set up a camp on the peninsula, then he would easily be able to be reinforced by the British fleet. What he didn't know was there were 6,000 French army that had landed in Newport, Rhode Island, and had come along with the French fleet. The British had already moved south, so they had no knowledge of this. When General Nathanael Greene wrote to the Marquis de Lafayette asking for French aid, the Marquis de Lafayette suggested that the American and French forces join together and attack the British forces at Yorktown. The French fleet then defeats the British fleet in the Chesapeake Bay, which is shown here on the map, and cuts off the British troops from sea support. Victory at Yorktown. The British army of 7,500 was surrounded by 17,000 American and French troops. They lay siege to Yorktown, which lasted for 1 month. General Cornwallis is forced to surrender on October 17th, 1781. You can see the British troops here at Yorktown that had been cut off as the British fleet had been defeated. You can see the French troops here and the American troops here, blocking any escape that Cornwallis might have had. This victory in the American Revolution for the Americans signifies the end of the Revolutionary War. Peace talks. The peace talks began in Paris in 1782. There were 4 nations there: the United States, France, Great Britain, and Spain. John Adams, John Jay, and Ben Franklin were all sent by the Continental Congress to negotiate. They demanded that the British recognize American independence before talks began. The Treaty of Paris is signed in September 1783. The treaty confirms American independence and set the borders for the new nation. So the United States, which is shown on the map here, as of the Treaty of Paris 1783, would extend from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River which is shown here, and then from Canada to the Florida border, which is shown here. There were some inherent problems in the Treaty of Paris that were not dealt with at the time. The British made no attempt to protect the land of the Native Americans. The Treaty of Paris also did not specify how the British soldiers that were still on American land would evacuate British forts. Americans agreed that British creditors would be able to collect money owed to them, which will not happen. And the state governments will fail to honor these agreements, so any British creditors who were owed money will not get it. A symbol of liberty. The War for Independence signifies and contributes to a rise of egalitarianism, which means a belief in the equality of all people. Really, during this time period, it was only meant to mean white males, because women had little rights. Some people did free slaves, but slavery was fully entrenched in the South, and the Native Americans were not considered U.S. citizens and had no rights. The next challenge will be setting up the new government for the United States of America.